In our first reading today, we read about, from Isaiah, he sings that song, right? He tells the story of the vineyard, where the vineyard is well constructed, has its wall, has its vines in place. It says that an enemy has come within and planted wild grapes. If you've ever dealt with grapes, and perhaps because I'm Italian or because my grandmother planted them, wild grapes, while they have a benefit, you can make some great jelly from wild grapes, not much else, and you have to add a lot of sugar to them. They take a lot of effort. Whereas cultivated grapes bear a real benefit. They can be used in a variety of ways and are much more prized. But the wild grapes sown here, the landowner realizes it will do no good to try to save this vineyard. And in doing so, tears out the entire thing because they will just overtake the good vines and ruin them. We see similarly in the gospel today how the landowner plants the vineyard, puts in the wine press, goes to all the trouble to make this place ready, and leases it out to tenants and says, "Here, I will expect a return." Reasonable. And yet, they have nothing but greed because they see that they can use the vineyard to satisfy only themselves and not to make this return on what has been given to them. And in so doing, violate all of the agreements that existed because they're seeking just their satisfaction and using the vineyard in a way that satisfies them but was not its intention. Becomes an opportunity for us to reflect upon how we cooperate with God who has given us this vineyard of the Lord. Right? The psalmist tells us the vineyard of the Lord is the house of Israel. The vineyard of the Lord is our place to be about the work. If you've noticed the last 4 weeks, the Gospels have been about vineyards, reminding us that it's within the vineyard that we make happen the kingdom of God. It's within the vineyard that we're given the opportunity to work, to produce, to bring about a harvest of goodness for the sake of God's kingdom, and in the end for our own as well. We will be saved through our efforts in the vineyard of God. The problem is, there is no shortage of people willing to sow wild grapes within the vineyard. There's no shortage of people seeking to distract us from the work of the vineyard by distracting us with the wild grapes or the sense that we can use this for our advantage alone and make no repayment to the Lord for the gifts that he has given. We see it played out in the use of our faith in all sorts of ways, and we've seen it recently played out, I will offer, in the local newspaper with articles written by a variety of priests, offering that perhaps there is a way to equivocate all moral issues and saying that they're all equal, and that by doing that we can recognize that all of these issues demand our attention. Well, of course they do. There are serious issues that confront our society and our culture. And as Catholics, we are not separate from the society, but rather engaged in the life of the society to bring about God's kingdom so that we can be workers within the vineyard and not trying to effect it from outside. We are engaged in the vineyard of the Lord. The difficulty is that some would have you believe that every moral issue is equal, that every moral issue stands on the same common ground from which we can view them all. That is a falsehood. There is a hierarchy of moral issues that the church offers to us, not to confront us or challenge us, but rather to do as St. Paul says to the Philippians, to have no anxiety, but in everything, in prayer and petition with thanksgiving, make your request to the Lord. The church offers us our moral teachings to help us understand that some issues are more important than others because, as Father Lampe mentions in his article in the Bulletin this weekend, there are some intrinsic evil that whenever they occur, they are morally corrupt and violate the moral code for us as Catholics and for all of goodwill. But there are particular actions that are morally wrong in every single case. Do not be misled by those who seek to sow wild grapes. There is a magnificent letter to the editor from yesterday's newspaper. And to quote part of it, I would like to thank the author, Father Henke, who is not just a parish priest like we are, but he is a doctor of moral theology teaching in our seminary and respected by those who choose our seminary to send their students. Referring to two previous articles in the newspaper, while their recommendations both have merit, both are equally egregious in their failure to acknowledge the greater moral weight that certain issues have in relation to others. Thus, actions that directly attack the lives of the unborn through abortion, or those that directly attack the long-born or seriously ill through euthanasia or physician-assisted suicide, carry greater moral gravity than other admittedly important issues like climate change or immigration. It is a faulty, seamless garment argument that equates moral issues without recognizing the essential moral distinctions between them. A properly formed conscience requires that moral issues be given their proper moral weight. Equating or overlooking important differences between moral issues can only lead to flawed conclusions. It is the wild grapes of others that confuse us, that bring about anxiety, and force us to wonder, what is the truth? The truth is that the intrinsic evil of abortion is the greatest moral threat to our culture and is the preeminent issue for us to consider. There is no doubt or quandary about that. If you think there is something greater than that, please don't send me an email. Come and see me for the sake of your immortal soul. This is the preeminent issue in our culture today. Lest there be any wild grapes that are attractive to you.